Welcome in, everybody. Just the folks that are here. Welcome back. This is Decisions Lunch and Learn for Wednesday, September 25th of the year 2024. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. So, if you are new, just watching this on YouTube, something along those lines, we are going to talk about some decisions stuff. Hopefully, answer some questions. Hopefully, do some learning, things along those lines. So. We'll get started here in about 60 more seconds, 90 more seconds, something in that line, and we'll just start talking. All right, I'm just going to start talking. So, welcome in, everybody. If you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or in the QA, or if you submit a question in some other capacity, feel free to let me know, and I can go hunt it down. So, welcome in. Um, we'll kind of just start talking about some random stuff. Maybe not random, but some directed stuff. And if you have any questions, I will pivot and answer the questions that you have to the best of my ability. So if you're just here to listen in, that's fine too. Totally fine. But feel free, chat, QA. You could even raise your hand and I'll let you speak. Something along those lines. So I think some important stuff to kind of talk about, just, the daily stuff that I talk about most days is we do have a YouTube channel where we're posting all of these lunch and learns as well as additional content. So I've been working diligently to kind of try and present content that I think we get from a lot of these lunch and learns. We also have this solutions marketplace on the bottom right. That's going to be accelerators and stuff that is pre-built out that you can easily import into decisions so that you can either see how it's built or find new use cases in your organization. So let's kind of look at those two things really quick, maybe one more thing, and then I'll show you what I've been working on. And again, if you have a question, just put it in the chat, the QA, something along those lines. So let's start on the YouTube. We've been uploading a lot of videos here lately, kind of going crazy with it. But we have all the lunch and learns. Again, we post them on here day to day. So if you are just hurting for more content in your life, there you go. We've also been adding videos on certain steps that might have some implications or some peripheral settings that we would like to highlight. So recently we've done CSV to object mapping, which allows you to take in a CSV file and map it into a decisions object. So if you are getting a CSV from some other type of source, you have a vendor giving you a purchase order in a CSV format, it allows you to easily take that stuff and use it in decisions without having to do a ton of work. We've also done add image to PDF. So as it implies, if you want to add a QR code or a signature to a PDF or a watermark or anything where you're adding an image to a PDF, we talk about that process right here. We got rule collection filters, allows you to parse data. You have huge data sets coming in, maybe from a CSV, who knows? Um, you have a huge data set coming in and you want to be able to parse that data or filter it in and out. You got options there. Also, speaking of the Decision Solutions Marketplace, I just made a video on one of the accelerators called the Playbook Activity Manager. You can find all those indecisions really easily. So again, even if you don't necessarily need to use them, if you just want to see how they're built, right? I'm in Decisions version 9 right now. We have a website that shows you all this stuff as well. Why am I not? All right, there, get full screen, perfect. Yeah, so you can go to the App Store and you can download any of these accelerators. So that's the same stuff that that QR code sent you to our website, but it's indecision, super easy. We got a question in the chat. Thank you. Um, all right, we'll look at that. One second. Just be aware you can download these and you can look at them, or you can um, find maybe a new use case. So again, I'm not gonna because we have questions, I'm gonna kind of pivot into the questions, but just be aware that they are actually built into Decision. Super easy to download. So like Playbook Activity Manager. Let's just, for the quickest version here, if I hit employee onboarding, it just allows you to install it right there. Okay. Um, Perfect, perfect, perfect. So the questions that we have, I'm definitely going to need some clarity. So Smith, I'm going to kind of unmute you, but I'm going to read it out loud for everybody else and for the folks just listening in on YouTube. But the question is, hi, had a quick question. How can I call curl commands in decisions like we cal commands from
Call,
the
sorry, we call,
Oh,
sorry.
okay. We call commands from the command prompt. How can we call bash scripts? Do you support calls to qlik from decisions? Those are all questions that I'm going to need some help with from people on this side of the line. Um, how can I call curl commands in decisions like we call commands from the prompt? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a couple things. One, I'm going to see if some folks on this side of the line might have some insight on it because it's just stuff that's maybe outside of the scope. So if I know, I don't want to give you any bad information.
You can go
But
ahead, Robert, and make a what do you call it?
yeah,
Just go into a flow.
let's do it. Thank you, Jared. You're the man. Let's go to a flow. Let's go ahead and just make a new one real quick.
So our curl command or call URL command in decisions, just go ahead and yeah, you can call whatever. It's just called a get call. We can do several different types. So if you scroll down, just yeah, and scroll down and go to integration.
I'm not sure if I have any setup on here.
No, you don't need it set up. Nope, not that. HTTP. Expand and see how we have get and get calls. So drag that onto the canvas and drag the post call. So those are all things that you can use to say, hey, for the get call, you can just add in. So for example, Robert, set that to a constant and just call google.com, right? And so you can type in a URL and then you can say, hey, I think you'll also need to add the HTTPS because it's going to think you're on a subdirectory of the web. So HTTPS : yeah. And then go ahead and connect it up to the end step and just debug. And I think this one will return some data. So input outputs of that, or just the output data, and see how you got the response. We got the response like, hey, it did call, google.com, and it returned some data from it. So that's kind of what we use. It's get call to call that. In regard to bash scripts, there is close and save this, Robert, and go into
Sorry,
the. Go ahead.
one quick question on that thing. Thank you for that. So if I
Sure.
use a get that get command thing, so I should be able to call anything what we do. It should be able to open like dashboard. Basically, what we are trying to do is from our decisions, we want to trigger a click dashboard. That is our goal. So one of the
Trigger a
way,
dashboard.
yeah, a click dashboard. It trigger in the sense reload a click dashboard basically. So we do, I mean, we are using some, using a curl command and a couple of reference things. We do it for other projects.
Sure.
So we already have that set up. But the thing is, how do we use that from decisions? So I think one of the ways some of them are using is like a bash script. So we want, so that's why I was asking if we could call a bash script
Yeah.
or call that curl command directly here with all the necessary parameters, whatever we pass. So
Sure.
from what I understand, using the get command, we should be able to do it, correct?
So the get call is just going to basically determine if that service that you're calling is online. So what we did in our old training environments is we actually did see if something was offline. We actually will do a get call to see if we actually get the web page, the landing page, and if we don't, we do like some type of process that tries to restart it. little different from what you're doing. If you just want to have a button to call a bash script, which sounds like that's more of what you're trying to do in your use case, close this, Robert. There is a module we have
Okay.
inside of the features, and I scroll down. I think we have like a bash script module. So SSH. Oh yeah, click on that one, SSH right there. So if you, what this allows, obviously SSH is a protocol that allows you to connect to another server. But what you can do now here is to go into the flow, Robert, back into the flow so that we can look at the steps there. Is now what you can do is you can say, hey, I want to SSH into one of those servers. So that would be integrations modules. And then I think it's like, let's see. Where did that module web service?
SSH
find
is what we're looking for.
Yeah, SSH, or where's the?
Oh, I need to make a dependency. Come on.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Make the
version
dependency
9.
real quick.
Yeah.
So as he's making that, so basically what it does is you will have these kind of shell commands that you can say, hey, I want to talk to this Linux server or Unix server, and then connect to it and then run this command. And you could type that in a plain text. You can make it dynamic with a flow to say, hey, run this specific thing. I'm into it. So that allows you to kind of do what you're talking about, which I think is what you're wanting more, is via SSH, connect to that IP or that DNS name, run this specific command, and then it will have that same effect. So that's integration. What is the SSH? Boom. And then over there, right, you just have to give in some of the configurations that you need. Like for example, the username, if there's a certificate, the port, the host. You can get the configuration from data if you're doing multiple, and then you can run your command.
Is there, like this is, I don't necessarily know if we will get all that kind of, to SSH is one way, but is like we have to run this. Here you're trying, we are connecting to another server and running the bash script on that. Basically, that's what we're doing via SSH, right? We're logging in onto that server and then doing it. But is there a way to call, if we store a script on this server, is there a way to do that?
Yeah, you can do a Python. There's a Python integration.
Yeah,
There's a
how do
Python
we do
script.
that?
Go ahead and install the Python module. So if you go to install the Python module, there'll be steps, and then you can do the folder path of where that script resides, and then it will call it, right? So that it's pretty much the same thing as the SSH, except you're just going to a local drive onto your own system, and you can do it with PowerShell as well. It's just kind of putting all that stuff, that information there.
Okay, but with SSH, we just need that user authentication, right?
Yeah, well, that's permitting. So I guess we have to narrow down the use case of what you're trying to do. Are you trying to do it on the system, the server that's running decisions? Are you calling a script on that server, or are you talking to another system and you want to run a script?
We are probably going to talk to another system. Like we are just investigating because tomorrow we're just going to try what are the possibilities. We know
Okay.
this curl works from from the bash things and stuff like that. That's implemented in another project. So we have to just try to replicate it in decisions because we want the basically the qlik dashboard to be reloaded from decision. So we are trying to decide what's the best way. Right now we are open to anything.
Right.
Whatever
But
works.
I got it. Now I understand the use case. So yeah, so what you can do then is just, right, with SSH, you have to give the credentials of how to talk to that other server. You run whatever the command is, and then boom, it will run it. That will probably be the way you have to do it because you have a network limitation there. If you use the Python script, go ahead and drag on those steps if you've created the dependency, Robert. If you use those, I think it doesn't allow you to it doesn't allow you to call a script on another server, and I could be wrong on that. I just need to see the steps, that we have in there, because that's just saying. Go ahead.
We had a problem. We couldn't mount any other drive. I think it was not allowed by our security for various reasons, we cannot
Right.
mount a drag on decision server.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And that's what I was gonna say. I think that's the
Yeah.
problem with there.
Yes.
Now, what you could do, which also is you're gonna talk to your ops team and they may not like this either, is you can run PowerShell and you could use the invoke command to say, I want to run this PowerShell script on another machine. But then you still have to make sure that those two servers are on the same domain and that certain secure ports are allowed for them to talk to. So it's going to be, there's many ways you can do this, but you're probably going to have to talk to your ops team and find out what is the way that they're the most comfortable with doing, because we can allow SSH, Python or PowerShell. It's just what would be the most secure way to do it for you guys.
If you don't mind clicking on that Python script, we just put that Python script in a local path and call it. Is that how this is? That's it, right?
Yep, pretty much. I think there's a document over this. Did you find that? I'm gonna try to find that document
Okay.
for you. But yeah, you'd have to, let's see, Python module overview, settings, navigate Python module container. Okay, cool. Creating script projects. I want to call it. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. This one tells you what even the inputs are. So I'm gonna put this in the chat right here. It'll give you some
Sure.
really good information on like how that it's set up. Because
Sure.
the read from path, you just have to give it the directory where it's or working directory where it's stored,
Mhm.
and then the custom inputs are the inputs of that script that's needed for it to run.
Okay. And then I'll look into that PowerShell and SSH.
Sure.
I didn't know about that. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for the question.
No, thank you, everybody. Thank you. I'm learning too. So appreciate you, Smith and Jared, for stepping in. We'll go ahead and kind of rock on to the next one. So Alexander, you had two that are both loosely related. So I'll start with the second one because I think it kind of leads into the first one. The second one you asked was connecting to a database and decisions and querying it. And the first one that you asked is, can I take a database table and run SQL on the table to create a calculated fields and then run a flow on the data generated in the SQL? Um, I believe yes to all those options. I'll kind of walk you through some of that stuff. I'll unmute you too, just if you kind of want to give us some kind of use case or anything along those lines. But I'll kind of just we'll let you through here. Perfect. So well, I guess we could start on number two. And I do want to show something really quick, just because I think it's cool. We have this thing that's relatively new. I'm not sure how publicly, you know, or how deterministic it is to get you to the absolute right answer, right? But it's newish. It's docbot.decisions.com. It's kind of we're messing around with parsing our documentation with an AI agent or an engine. While Jared was talking, I typed your question as it laid into this DocBot, and it did give us some information relatively quickly. So just again, for folks that are looking for resources out there, docbot.decisions.com. I typed it in and it kind of just populated it. So this is an open thing. It's not just for Decisions employees, but just if you do have questions in the future, just realize that that's a really great tool for you. So connecting to databases, yeah, you got a number of options. So are you on version 8 or version 9 there, Alexander?
Let's see.
Is your screen blue up here or is it orange?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm in version 8, and
Okay.
it's blue.
Yeah.
I'm orange when I switch things.
Yeah. You got both options on 8. Yeah, so on 8 and 9, it's not fully different, but you just had more options in 9. So in 8, you're going to go through system, designers, and then integrations down here, and then databases, and you can create a connection right here to a database. So again, I can kind of just
create a connection every time I want to connect to a table, or is it like once I connect to a database, I'm able to access any table within that database?
correct. Yep. Yeah, I think you would as far as I know, you would need access to the database to get access to the tables that live within it. Is it yeah, we're good on that? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
right. Once you create the connection string once, and then you can integrate with any table that the account that you're using to talk to that table has permissions to, right? Does that make sense? So if I have 5 tables, right? And the database account that I'm using to connect to that database only has the permissions to 3 of those tables. That means that with that account, I can access those 3 tables and integrate with those 3 tables, but the other 2 I can't. So you just have to be aware of the permissions on that account that you're using to talk to the databases.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. And then for the second half of it, using raw SQL or SQL command, let me read the exact wording again. Can I have the link, please? Yeah, the link. What do you want the link to? I can definitely give you the link to anything.
The bot. The bot looked really cool.
Yeah, I got you, man. And just again, realize this is still kind of an early iteration. It's not going to give you the end all be all perfect answer to everything. But for me, I'm still kind of getting my feet under myself at times. And it's nice to just have like a good starting point. And especially for the more simple questions, where it's like, I work here, and it's like I should know the answer to this, but it's just, how can I adjust permissions on a group or something? Just for simple questions, it does a pretty good job of just parsing out that information. It does take, 30 seconds or so to kind of think and go through all of our doc, but it is good there. When it comes to the using SQL, let me reread the question again just to make sure I'm in the right line here. Can I take a database table and use SQL on the table to create calculated fields and then run a flow on the data generated in the SQL? So yeah, I mean, there's a couple different ways you could walk that path. You can always query the tables just using the query editor and decisions, and depending on which version you have, it's going to look slightly different. We also have raw SQL steps that you just got to be careful with the raw SQL step. And even when I pull this up on, and here's that groups thing, by the way, but even when I go to documentation, I just think it's always important when we're talking about this. Um, it says it here in like capital bold double orange lettering. Just be careful with raw SQL step because you do kind of have, you know, the opportunity to as it says, inject vulnerabilities, also known as just breaking things. You do have the opportunity to break things. So just be aware that when running this step, you just do want to be careful and pay attention to it. Um, you can always query tables and decisions as well. So I'm not sure if I can do it exactly from here. I know where I can do it in other places.
Are you also going to be like that query that you want to run? Is that always going to be the same query? And you always want to display data like here's the cost of it. Here's maybe a good.
Essentially we have a it's really silly. Um we have a field that essentially we get from our ERP system and it's not in the right format. And so they wanted me to format it and also apply some extra data. Well, for me to do that, I need to basically join the table on itself and then kind of offset that join.
Sure.
And I don't know how to do that with, decisions, but I know I can get to it in SQL relatively quickly and then just use decisions as a kind of through platform to kind of.
Yeah, what I would recommend is you can integrate with the database view. So if you want to create a view on that database where you're in, then decisions can integrate with it, and then you just connect to it like it's its own like report viewer. And that would be a pretty good performant way to handle that.
How would we
It's
walk through
actually
that?
going to be more performant.
Database integration,
Oh, okay.
right there to the left. You had it. And like database integration to the left,
Oh, sorry. Thank you, sir.
and then view. So you can use it to display complex and joint data. This one is more performant because the query is done on the database side, not on the decision side. So you're not talking to the decision database to send it through to the front end to do the calculation. It's already done on the back end, and decisions is just talking to it and just displaying that information.
Okay, that sounds good. And then I can pull that into I can reference it with some kind of step, right, inside of a flow.
Yep, you can reference it as a step. You can reference it as a run report step. You can report on it. You can do a lot of stuff.
Oh, that's neat.
We have a video on our YouTube channel that walks through like setting up a table view. Obviously, there's tons of YouTube videos on how to set up a database view, but this one specifically was doing integrating with a database view and what it looks like in decisions. So that might be a helpful resource.
I got it right here for you as well. I'll put that in the chat for everybody just 'cause I think, that stuff's kind of cool. Share.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Questions may be too specific. I made a change in the flow of the project that is already in production. Is it possible to move only those changes from the flow? We'll talk about that here in a second. Let me just put this in the chat. Sometimes I think specificity is good. I don't know if there's anything in the lunch and learn world that is too specific. I can't say there are things that we just say, hey, support's going to want to take a look at that, because I don't want to give you advice, especially when you have things in production. So let me reread the question again, and thank you again for everybody for the questions. We're all learning here today. So I got a question that says, hi, I made my question too specific, but I made a change in a flow of a project that is already in production. Is it possible to move those changes only from this flow? So you are, yes, I mean, the answer is yes. But I do want to ask some clarifying questions if you don't mind giving me some words there. I did unmute you. So essentially you made a change. Okay, I tried to do that, but I'm getting an error calling service method. Where did you make those changes? In production or in the dev, in your dev server? In dev. Okay, so in production, there is a flow that is working. In dev, you have made changes and you want to push those changes all the way out of production, and you want to push only the changes? Yes. Okay. Yeah, no problem at all. Let's do it. All right. I hope I am connected to the repo here. I think I am. All right. So I'm going to make a hypothetical. I won't even make a hypothetical. I'll work on something I'm working on here. So I'm going to get to where you are at, and then we will get to the resolution. So essentially, I have this project. I'm going to check this in. I got to remember. I do know my password. I just got to change it again. Check it in. I believe this is my password these days. Okay. So I'm going to check in everything that I have with this project into my repository server. So I'm going to say, this is a completed project by over action visibility rules. All right. So I'm going to commit this, check in. I'm going to check this project into the repo. I'm not going to fully walk out the process just because I don't have another server easily applied. But you could imagine that if I went to my repo or went to my prod server, I could then check that project out of dev or out of repo, apologies. So then in our current iteration, in our fictional world, we have dev, repo, prod. I just took this project and pushed it to repo, and then hypothetically, we'll put hypotheticals in yellow. I hypothetically pushed this to prod. It lives on prod right now. It's working. It's in deployment. I'm feeling happy about it. So this is, I think, where you're at. So now we've made changes to this project. And again, I know there's a lot of nuance with this too, where if you've also have things that aren't ready to be pushed that are still in development, that's a different conversation. But is your project in development good to go? Like if you perfectly pushed your dev, if you perfectly pushed your dev project to repo, would it have only the things you need, or does it have a bunch of other stuff that isn't done being developed yet? This is another good question, I think. I can hear you a little bit, but not super well. So I'm just going to make some changes kind of while I'm doing this. So let's say I have this flow and I want to make some changes here. And I know that you said getting an error calling the service method. Yeah, so are you getting the error in prod now? That's another question, is where is that error occurring? When you're trying to check into repo, or when you're trying to check out of with
Hi,
prod?
hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep, sounds great now.
Sorry. Yeah. Like I said, my question is too specific, but this is the first time that I made a change.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm still learning,
No problem.
and this is the first bug that I tried to fix in this project, and I made that change in dev, obviously, and I tried to check in the change to the next environment, which is I
Repo,
don't remember the
probably
UAT
repo.
UAT
Okay.
environment, and I tried to check in from dev environment, but I got this error calling service method, and it says user have valid credentials for repository.
Okay.
Yeah, but obviously in the other in UAT environment and prior environment, there's the repository connect, but I'm not sure why is that kind of message, or is that kind of error in
Yeah.
dev?
Yeah. So you're saying it says something along you don't have credentials to get in? So
Um,
with the repository, so if this is like, it's totally fine. I think I appreciate the specificity and all the information. Let me start with that. But you have to, in order to be able to push something to repo or to any of these, you have to have an account with it. Like, so like you might have an account in your dev server. That doesn't necessarily imply that you have an account in your repo.
well, I have an account here in
Okay,
the
you do? Okay.
security.
So you can
Yeah.
log into your, so you're trying to push to UAT or to push to repo?
I don't really understand that
Question.
question. Yeah.
So
So so you have an integration that works in dev, yes?
Yeah.
But the integration does not work in prod, yes?
he can't check it into repo.
Yeah, I can check in
So
When
you
he ch
can't,
the repo.
when he checks in, it says invalid credentials to try and check in, which leads me to believe it's something with the account.
Yeah, that is
okay, gotcha.
I mean, again, with sometimes with troubleshooting, I really don't mind giving as much peripheral information as I can. But with something like this, again, I think a support ticket might be good because they can walk through it with you. What I would recommend if I was in your shoes and I was troubleshooting this, I would try and just log into repo. If it logs you into repo, right?
Yeah.
I would check and make sure, hey, what am I logged in as and what was my password? And then when I go to check something in, I just did this, so it's not going to let me. I just did it like a couple seconds ago and it remembers it. But I would check to make sure that email and that password is the exact same because I had an issue like this a couple weeks ago and I didn't realize that over here I had this email, but somehow on my dev, I had some different email with just like a slightly different spelling. I had Rob grading from like a grading a project. And I was like trying to connect over and over again. I'm like, I'm resetting my password to repo and I know it works because I'm logged in here. Why can I not connect it? And it's just because I missed that the spelling of the email was wrong, or just it had a different email. Um, so when you check in, is it giving you login credentials or can you get to this screen right here?
No, it's just the message that I put in the Q&A chat.
Okay, so when you click
I
check in, however you go through it, design a repository check in, it just gives you an error message immediately.
Yeah.
Okay. So then what I would recommend is going to settings, system settings down here. In settings, you have down here towards the bottom, you have repository somewhere. Design a repository settings and just make sure that this URL is correct. Because if you go to click check in and it immediately throws you an error, to me that sounds like you don't have the right URL or you're not connected on a system-wide level. Like if it doesn't give you the option to enter a passcode in, if it doesn't do any of that, you want to make sure that you have because your process is right. You make a change, you just check it into repo, you go to prod and you check it out or however, whatever your methodology is. But if you go to hit check in, check out, and it just errors out immediately, like I could probably break this right now. Let's see what happens. Let's just break this. Let me just undo this actually. We'll see what happens if I just put a random URL in here. Okay. So now if I go to my project and I try to check in, is this what your thing says, something like this?
Well, not a specific message, but yeah, it's kind of.
Yeah, and it might just be with 8, like your credential. Like if I did try, I don't want to break our 8 server because it's a shared server. But that'd be the first place I check. But this does sound like a really great option for a support ticket, and I can help submit that for you if you'd like. I can just have someone reach out to you, basically. But if you know how to submit it, through however your portal is, it might be better
You
for you.
can
That
email support@decisions.com.
yeah, email support@decisions.com is another great option for you.
I'm sorry, what was the email?
Support@decisions.com. I can type it out here in the chat for you as
Okay,
well.
thank you.
Yeah. And that'll create a ticket for, and then they'll be able to respond and have someone take a look at your exact thing with you. Because again, when it comes to like, I'm gonna send it here. Support@decisions.com. I just put it in the chat just so everyone can see it. Um, yeah, when it comes to troubleshooting, it's just hard to do without kind of seeing it and without exposing your credentials. Because the last thing I want to do is continue to walk down this path and one of us um, does something that puts your security at risk. But I would say that if it says something about invalid credentials, it's probably either in this global debugger or sorry, in this designer repository settings or something with the passcode in your actual repository itself.
All right, many thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for the question. What other questions do we have in the chat, y'all? I know we got quite a bit of time left. I don't mind showing off some stuff that I've been working on. I don't mind answering questions. Um, I don't mind just chatting with DocBot for a couple minutes, whatever anybody wants to do. All right, I'll do a couple minutes just because I've got some stuff on my mind and I kind of want to get a little practice session in here. Here's what I've been working on, and again, I can just kind of talk. And if you want to listen in, or or sorry, rephrase that. If you want to interrupt with a question, please interrupt me with a question. It can be related to this. It can be unrelated. I will pivot on a dime. But what I've been kind of playing around with, check the Q&A. Cool. What I've been kind of playing around with is these action visibility rules, and trying to learn more about this. So with action visibility rules, it gives you the ability to take data sets and take users and take groups and apply rules so that certain users can do certain things in certain states. But the underlying kind of bigger zoomed out question for you is going to be, when is it more advantageous to just disenable all actions or hide certain actions on certain cases? So what do I mean by that? So, and those of you that are not super familiar with it, in a configuration folder, you can add user actions or visibility rules, which I haven't fully provisioned out. I can show you a working one here in a second that will hide certain actions from certain users. So as an actual use case here, which I'm going to work on just finalizing building it out here. Um, yep, I think it's this one. Yeah, it is. Nice. Um, so for this particular project, we have a use case where the only way that an employee can get the action to sign document is if the person who is in decisions, right, the initiating user email equals the email on the submitted record. So if I log in as my email and I submitted a record through this process, I have the ability to sign for it. However, if the name on the original submitter is Jared and I'm logging in and I right click on that record, I can't sign for it because I didn't put it through. So we ran it through this way. And again, that signed document is just an action that we added here to the unsigned category that has some steps in it. So this user action to do this thing only shows up if you are the person who submitted the record and your logged in decisions looking at the report at that time. We have another one for assist with signing. So you have to be in HR. So whoever decided to right click or left click that record gets the option, if they have human resources as a group, to assist with signing. So let's go back to where I'm at. So I have this show pop-up kind of step that I put across all just to kind of show, a quick build out. A thing that you should understand is that on these records, so like let's say I have all purchase request data. If I right click on these, I will always be given the option to change state. This is just the landing that I decided, I forget the name of it, but the folder, what's the name of this again, Jared, where you designate the project folder. Let's just look it up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm going crazy.
Uh,
It is the parent folder. There it is. Apologies. So the parent folder I specified when I was making this data was this request data. When I right click one of these records, I'll be given that user action because I added it to the configuration folder. However, on this dashboard, right, on the right side here, I have two different reports. They look the same, but they're a little different. I went in on the settings of this report and turned off the actions for left and right click. So if I right click any of these records, you can't tell I'm clicking unless you hear my little click noise in the background. Nothing's happening. But on this left side in this report, I did enable actions on right and left click. So when I click these, I'm given the option to change state. So why am I talking about this? User visibility actions are great, but if there are certain use cases where, say, you have a report and no one's ever going to be able to do anything on this report. It's public facing. You don't want any, this is a overall report that your whole company can see, and you don't want anyone to be able to mess with it. Rather than making a million um, user action visibility rules, you can just hide actions on the whole report so that no one can do those things, right? But if you decide, hey, I want to make certain rules so that certain people or certain times of day or whatever it is can see this show pop-up, which I added to this configuration as a user action, you can set up visibility rules. So we have these action visibility rules. I already have one kind of set up here that I haven't fully built out, but I can select something along the lines of, and I'll kind of add the bottom part first, and action, next. Oh, it's action.name. Apologies. So I'm going to sort by action.name. And because that's a string name, it gives me these newer verbs. Notice how when I remove this name, the verbs I have are not as thorough. But if I can go to action name, I saw we got a question, so I might just pivot out of this. Action name equals, and I believe I called it show pop-up. I'll have to confirm that. And just be aware, like with this kind of stuff, like you do want to confirm, like, do I spell that right? Show pop-up, I did. All right, so I see the QA is kind of going on. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Hello, I'm trying to set up a notification for reports, but I'm not seeing the data in the flow. Okay, Alexander, I'm going to pivot off this. For the folks that just wanted to see closure, the only thing I needed to add here was a rule to filter out who cannot. So with this, I would say, like if I put not HR, it will only show me only HR will be able to do this thing or whatever the group is. But I'll pivot because I'm here for the people. Alexander, can you give me some clarity on are we talking about the lunch and learn question from yesterday about time notifications, or are we talking about something from today? Yes, the question, what does that mean? The question from yesterday? I think I have you unmuted if you want to speak back up. Oh, no, I didn't. Apologies. Apologies.
That's all good. Yeah, it's from yesterday. So I went through your explanation made sense, and I was doing it, but I actually don't. I was trying to tie it in to for the notification or email to go off based on a certain field that is in my that should be in my flow or should be there for me to use, but I'm not seeing any of the data or any of the fields for that matter from my form, and
Okay.
I was curious why that
I,
might.
I might need a refresher on what we built out because I know that Jeremy was the one building out with you yesterday. I might need a refresher on where did you guys land at? What was the, where were we at?
Sure, let me pull it up. So I basically went to assignment setup. I'm at assignment setup right now, and I'm not seeing any of my data points in my assignment setup field.
Yeah, I mean,
Let's
you drive me for a bit, man. Let's do it together. So if I have a flow, so let's do it in this one. You want to drive me a little bit and get me to where you are?
If you have a flow, just create a flow, and then we were using the form quote request form. I'm sorry, we weren't using that. We were just creating a new flow, and then I used the what was this? What is this step called? 1 second. Assign form step.
So that's the first step in this flow, assign form.
Yep, assign form step.
All right.
We're looking at an add task, Robert.
Oh, okay. Thank you, man.
Sorry,
Add task is on the assignment setup.
Cool. All right. So then what are we doing here?
And then I grabbed a form that I had created
Uh,
previously.
don't know if I have any in this project. Oh, I do. Okay. Form
And then I connected it.
like that.
Yep. And then I scrolled down to assignee on the properties. I scrolled down to
Assignment setup.
assignment setup. Yep. Went there to edit and then set up for a, what was it? A late, I believe.
Wait.
Open mine back up.
Specify late date.
Yeah, specify late date.
Okay.
Um,
And
actually,
then
no, it
you
was
probably did
specify
a
escalate
constant.
date. Sorry, because I wanted to be escalated. And then I said in future, and then in future, and then I went to start. I wanted to select from my form, and maybe I'm misunderstanding what data sets are allowed. So I don't have it on constant. I have it on. I was trying to use select from flow, and my data that I would think that I would see in my form or that will come along with these each one of these individual. I guess we call them quotes, but I don't know what they'd be called in decisions.
Good year, 1870. I don't know if that's good year actually. All right. So you're saying, again, apologies for kind of picking up here. So when you go to here, select from flow, you're not getting the options at all.
Well, I thought it would come along with the form, like I'd be able to access anything that's put through the form. Is that not the? I'm guessing that's not the case.
Oh,
Since
so you want the form, you want data on the form to be able to populate this.
yes.
All right, we'll see it. See if we can figure it out. Let's see if we can figure that out. All right, so we would need data. Um, well, that would be challenging because can someone on this side of the line clarify? This assignment is made when the form is hit. Is that correct? So you can't, when the assignment's made when the form is hit, it's written to the assignment table. You wouldn't be able to then, I mean, you could probably output something and adjust that table.
Mhm.
But is that right, everybody? That you wouldn't be able to take data from the form because the assignment is made the second the form is hit.
I don't understand the question.
So,
The data is just being passed into the form, but anytime before that, you can get
right.
access to that data.
But he wants to on the form be able to put in information that would populate this.
Uh-huh. Sure.
But I would imagine that this is written to the table the moment that the step is hit.
Right, but as an input, you can design what the data you want in that property is. I'm still very confused on the question.
He wants to be able to take this field right here. Let's say
Yeah.
this one. He wants to be able to take this field
Mhm.
and populate this with the field that's on the form. I don't think it's going to be possible.
Well, but in that data would become before the form, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's supposed to come before the form because this assignment is made when the form is hit. His ask is how can I loop that? Like how can I on the form specify an escalate date?
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. You would get that from the data package you're passing into it, right? So you just select from flow, grab whatever data you're passing into it.
I only ask this because I mean, when our form goes off, it has the assignee on there, so I want to grab the assignee and things like that and pass it through. So I know who to email, so I don't have to like make a bunch of different, because I already have like a group. I have different groups and stuff like that of the
Mhm.
people that could send, like that would like approve something, but I don't want to like build it out for every single person. So I want to dynamically just pass through who it's assigned to and then send that person an email.
Who's assigned to?
I mean, you could get data from
Yeah.
previously in the flow and populate any of this, no problem. You're not going to be able to get data from the form to
Okay.
populate this because this is made the second the form is hit, the assignment is because this, I could, um, I could make an assignment for another user, no problem, and it would just sit there, but
Mhm.
that assignment still sits on the assignment table. And I'd imagine that all of this is built into that assignment table.
Okay. How do I get data from later on? That'd be interesting to see as well.
Get data from later on. So let's say you want to adjust the escalate date based on the output of this.
Well, you were just saying you can get data later on in the flow. Is that correct? Or
Oh no, it'd be earlier. I might have misspoke. Like you can like if I create data here called older date,
okay,
like I have the option to say, hey, the escalate date, and this could come from any number of places, but I can specify older date and get the data from previously in the flow. But like essentially when we go here, and as
Mm,
soon as this form is hit, it makes that assignment to the assignment table, right? So it writes in when that escalate date is based on when that assignment was made. So even though you changed stuff over here and you might have entered in information here,
mhm.
like we're past that assignment being made.
Okay,
You could have another form before it. So, I mean, you could have two and then lead one into the next. But there's not going to be a way that I can think of. I mean, you could, so with a build out, I would imagine that it would be a build out, but you could have an active form flow that would say when this field is changed, it'd be a bit of a build, but let's say the ship date is changed. I would imagine that because when I use this step, let's say I just grab anything here, I'll have access to, nope, wrong button. I have access to that value in this flow.
mhm.
So like if I change that value to, 1973, that would be the data that represents this value figure right here. I would imagine that there's a way to um, change the value of what's on that assignment table, but it would be a little bit, I mean, I could mess with it for a moment, but it might be a bit of a build out. So I'm on 9, so integration, internal services. Let's just look and see if we have some quick assignment stuff. See if there's any like set escalation date. Um, assignment. See if we have any options here to like some kind of escalation date. Uh,
I mean, would it be better if I just instead maybe loop through my data structure and just kind of loop through, put a clause in there that looks for how long the item's been in there, since the data's already there at that point, and maybe just have it run daily or something?
that might be a good option for you.
So
Oh,
it's
here's set escalate date. So you'd have to get the assignment ID. So can I get the assignment ID from the form data maybe? No. Flow data, it wouldn't be under that. it would take a little bit of a build up. We do have the option to set and escalate date, and then I can say what is the date. I can select from flow and go, I want I want to set the escalate date to the ship date time picker value. I'll just have to figure out a way to get the assignment ID in here, um, because that assignment should have already been made. Again, this is kind of an overbuild here. Well, if you know the assignment name, because you make the assignment name, you can
Mhm.
filter by the assignment name and then get the last entry, and that should be the most recent. Again, it would just take some. There are more fields here in which we could probably specify what that assignment that it came from the most recent one. I do wonder. Yeah, it would just involve a little bit of a fetch to get that assignment ID. You'd have to maybe play with it, but that'd be if you wanted to set the escalate date based on data that comes into the form, I would use an active form flow based on when that changed. Use set escalate date on that assignment. We just have to figure out a way to easily get that. Um,
Okay, I don't think that'd be too hard to implement.
cool. All right, guys. Any other final questions? Because we just did our whole hour. So, oh, I have a quick question. Hopefully, yeah, of course, I can definitely help you out. I have a quick question. Hopefully, a production flow completed and processed hundreds of accounts. I want to inspect the flow few for a select few accounts to validate the business logic. Ideally, I'd like to view the flow for a selected account like we do in the debugger. Is this possible, or do I have to need to rely solely on the logs? Can you read today? Read it one more time. I have a quick question, hopefully. A production flow completed and processed hundreds of accounts. I want to inspect the flow for a select few accounts to validate the business logic. Ideally, I'd like to view the flow for a selected account like we do in the debugger. Is there a possible way, or do I need to rely solely on the logs? I'm leaning towards on the logs. I don't know if there's not going to be a historical way, especially if this ran, days ago, weeks ago, minutes ago. This is a post run, or is this something that you're gonna do? If you're gonna do it, I mean, post run. Okay. Um, let me think here. While I'm thinking, let's let the bot think, and I'm gonna think for a moment too. Um, there's not going to be as far as my understanding, there's not going to be like a debugger view in post run. Um, not a clean way. Um, yeah. So, thought you might have a magic trick. I wish I did. But yeah, I'm the least magical person around here, to be honest with you. Um, yeah. Anybody else on this side of the line? You guys want to confirm for me that that's not possible? There's no way just to get any kind of debugger data outside of the logs. Yeah, I think we are out of that. Yep. Unfortunately, I think I don't think I have it, unfortunately. So, sorry I couldn't land on that one for you, but I think, yeah, once it's run, post run, you're just going to have the log. So it would just be a lot to kind of store all that like UI graphical stuff. It would be a cool feature to be able to jam a log back into a window and get the debug history. That'd be a cool feature request, but it's not something that kind of currently lives in decisions. All right, folks. I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you guys all for joining. We did our whole hour. I appreciate everybody. I will see you folk tomorrow. Thank you.